Hey friends, tonight we're not heading to the battlefield. We're not trapped in a siege. We're not trudging through the snow with a broken sword and no boots. We're doing something much, much worse. We're going to the doctor, except it's the 1300s, and the doctor doesn't have painkillers, or antibiotics, or the faintest idea what a germ is. He has a jar of leeches, a rusty blade, and an unwavering belief that the stars are mad at your liver. This episode of Boring History for Sleep takes you deep into the warm, damp, and vaguely mould-scented world of medieval medicine. You'll learn how they treated a headache with bloodletting, how they treated a fever with more bloodletting, and how they responded to almost anything else with prayers, urine charts, and powdered toad. We'll explore what it felt like to be sick as a medieval peasant, how people tried to survive the Black Death, why a crushed emerald might be prescribed for nosebleeds, and how elite doctors could be just as wrong, but in Latin. So if you're ready to bleed out your bad humours and get a warm poultice of moss applied to your spleen, you're in the right place. Before we begin, go ahead and like the video and subscribe, only if you genuinely enjoy slow, immersive dives into humanity's bleakest, weirdest moments. And drop a comment telling me what time it is for you, and whether you're falling asleep to this in bed, or just feeling slightly feverish and curious. Now close your eyes, get comfortable, and try not to cough too loudly, because tonight, you're going to be very, very sick. You wake up in the dark, the roof above your head is wooden but not tight. You can hear the wind slipping through the gaps in the beams, you're lying on straw, it's damp, something is scratching near the edge of the floor, your throat is raw. It started yesterday. A little soreness, a tightness in your chest, but today, it's worse. Your whole body aches, and when you sit up, slowly, carefully, your head pulses like it's full of hot water. There is no doctor here. You live in a small village, a few dozen souls. Your home is one room. You share it with your wife, your children, and the goats. You don't own books. You've never seen a printed word. But you know sickness when it comes. Your neighbour notices. She visits quietly, bringing a bowl of water and a scrap of cloth. She tells you it's probably a punishment. For what, she doesn't know. But she suggests confession, just in case. She also gives you something, a little bag of dried leaves. You chew them. They're bitter. They don't help. You can't go to work today. You're meant to walk to the fields, but your legs shake. So you stay inside, wrapped in a cloak, trying not to shiver too loudly. The village has a healer. She's called a wise woman. She's treated births, burns, and broken bones. But she's not rich. She charges in eggs, or wool, or dried fish. You don't have any fish left, so you wait. You sweat. Then you freeze. You see colours behind your eyes. Sometimes you sleep, sometimes not. You hear the distant bell of the church tower, the coughs of your neighbour's children, the creak of the wind in the shutters. Someone says your urine is too pale. Someone else says it's too yellow. Someone says it smells wrong. They all nod like this means something. You wish it did. A passing monk visits the village. He offers a prayer, sprinkles holy water. He says your illness might be caused by sin, or the devil, or a misalignment of the planets. He leaves you with a wooden cross and a suggestion to fast. You can barely keep down water. Your family feeds you weak broth made from onions and nettles. They soak rags in vinegar and wrap your feet. One woman puts warm ashes on your chest. Someone tries singing. It's a soft tune, an old chant. It helps you sleep for a little while, but the sickness remains. You don't know what it is. You don't know what caused it, and you certainly don't know how to treat it. You just hope, quietly, silently, that it will pass, like the wind, like the season, like so many others you've watched go pale, then quiet, then still. You wait, because that's all there is to do. You wake up before dawn, not from the light, but from the cold. It slips in under your blanket, which is really just an old cloak. You pull it tighter, but it doesn't help. Your back aches from the straw beneath you. You hear the soft rustling of rats nearby. They've found the bit of dried root your wife tucked away in the corner. You try to sit up, and that's when you remember. Your head hurts. Not like a bump or a bruise, but like something is pressing in from all sides. Behind your eyes, behind your ears, in the back of your neck. A slow, pounding heat. You breathe in, your throat stings, your chest crackles, your mouth is dry, your family is still asleep. Your youngest is curled up next to the dog who keeps the floor slightly warmer. Your wife is turned toward the wall, coughing softly in her sleep. One of the children is moaning, a small noise that repeats with each breath. The fire went out in the night. You remember being told, always keep the embers alive, but there's no wood left, just a few damp twigs and some old straw. You pull yourself to your knees and try to blow gently on the ashes. Nothing catches. Your fingers are trembling. You're not sure if it's the fever or just the fear. Yesterday you had a headache. You thought it might pass. It didn't. You didn't tell anyone at first. There's no real use in complaining. There's no medicine, no healing hands, no real hope. But now your hands feel numb, your eyes won't focus, and when you cough, it rattles deep in your ribs. You've been sick before. Everyone gets sick, but this feels different. Your neighbour stops by mid-morning. She's older than you, maybe. In the village, people age in uneven ways. She wears a wool shawl and keeps her hair bound with string. She looks at you, frowns and says it might be the winter fever, or swamp air, or too much salt, or not enough salt. She offers you a strip of willow bark and tells you to chew it slowly. It's bitter. Your stomach turns, but you do it anyway. She also recommends prayer, lots of prayer. So you kneel, you try to speak, but your mouth is dry and your mind keeps wandering. You think of the pigs, of the debts you haven't paid, of the man who coughed just like this last winter and never got up again. The village has no doctor, but there's a healer, a woman who knows herbs and chants and has a jar of leeches. She's seen by some as wise, by others as dangerous. But she's away, helping with a difficult birth 2 valleys over. Even if she were here, you couldn't afford her. You have nothing left to trade. A monk comes through the village that afternoon, travelling on foot, thin. He offers blessings and relics in exchange for bread. You have a crust. You give it to him. He places a hand on your shoulder. His fingers are warm. He mutters a few Latin phrases you don't understand. Then he suggests a fast. Fast for 3 days, he says. Purge the body, purge the sin. Drink only water if you must. Pray until the fever breaks. But the fever doesn't break. That night your dreams twist. You see shapes. Faces from years ago. Your mother. A dog you haven't thought of since you were a child. A bright red fire that won't go out. You wake up coughing, your blanket is soaked, but you're still cold. You lie awake until morning. The next day your wife crushes some wild garlic and wraps it in cloth. She ties it around your neck. It smells strong, sharp. It makes your eyes water. A child comes by with a dried frog. His mother told him frogs help. You hold it, because it makes him feel better. A priest visits. He doesn't touch you. But he leaves a prayer charm, a scrap of cloth marked with a cross. No one says it aloud, but they're afraid to stand too close. Someone offers to burn some straw beneath your bed. Smoke clears the evil spirits, they say, but the smoke just makes your lungs seize up. You stop eating, you lie still. You listen to the wind in the thatch, the dogs barking, the children laughing somewhere in the distance, and the faint bells ringing from the chapel down the road. And through it all, you wait. Not because you're hopeful, not because you expect healing, but because there is nothing else to do. No hospital, no cure, no diagnosis. Just a long, slow slide into whatever comes next. And for most of the world, that's what medicine looks like. Eventually someone decides you've waited long enough. The fever hasn't passed. You're pale, quiet, and now your breath whistles in your chest. You haven't eaten in 2 days. And when you try to speak, the words come out thin, like wind through dry reeds. Your wife sends for help, not a doctor. You've never seen a doctor. The nearest one lives days away, if he even exists, and his services are for nobles, monks, bishops. But there are others. The first to arrive is the wise woman. She's been in the village longer than anyone can remember. Her hands are wrinkled, her face lined. She carries a pouch filled with dried plants, feathers, stones, and folded cloth. She doesn't ask what's wrong. She smells you, looks in your mouth, presses your stomach, then nods quietly. She tells your wife to heat water, to fetch nettle, garlic, and crushed lavender. She spits in a bowl and stirs in ash. You don't understand what it's for, but you drink it. She ties a bundle of herbs to your wrist, wraps your chest in a bandage soaked in vinegar and mustard, then says to rest. If the devil wants to leave, he'll do it in his own time. That night you sleep in fits. The next morning a man comes, not the same kind of healer, he's the barber. His clothes are stained. He smells of wine and iron. He carries a small chest filled with blades, clamps and hooks. He looks you over, asks for a mirror of metal, spits on it and holds it near your nose to check your breath. He tells you your blood is hot, too hot. The humours are unbalanced. The cure is obvious. You need to bleed. Your wife hesitates. You barely have strength left. But the barber insists. He ties a strip of cloth above your elbow, sharpens a blade with a practised rhythm. You feel the cut. Not the pain exactly, but the motion. A warm, slow trickle. Then a second bowl, this time from your ankle. They let it drip until you feel lighter. Too light. You faint. Or maybe you sleep. When you wake, your lips are dry. Your head buzzes. They've placed a leech on your temple, another behind your ear. You feel it pulsing, slow and greedy. The wise woman returns. She burns dried rosemary and walks around your bed in circles. She mutters something, not Latin, not anything you recognise. Your child hides behind the door, watching silently. Later they feed you a spoonful of honey mixed with ground bone. They say it will strengthen your stomach. It tastes of dirt and sweetness. You force it down. Someone brings a dried toad strung on a string. It's hung over your doorway to ward off spirits. Someone else brings a handful of goose grease to rub on your chest. A priest passes through the village again. He sprinkles water, then whispers in Latin. He places a wafer on your tongue. You cannot swallow it. He says that's a sign. You're given a charm, woven from thread and thistle. It's tied around your neck with care. Outside, the snow has started to fall. Thin flakes melt on the thatch and vanish before they land. Inside, the air smells of smoke, sweat and dried herbs. The candle flickers. You cannot tell if it is day or night. Someone rubs your feet with onions. Someone pours warm wine into your mouth by the drop. Someone prays. You drift in and out. Voices become wind. Hands become ghosts. You wake to singing. A soft voice, familiar, your wife. She strokes your hair and dips a cloth in cool water. You've stopped coughing for now. Your chest still aches. Your limbs feel hollow. Your mouth tastes of iron. But you're still here. The treatment, if you can call it that, has ended. You're not better, but not worse. And in the medieval world, that counts as healing. The fever doesn't lift. You drift somewhere between waking and sleep, but not comfortably. Each time your eyes close, strange images crawl behind them. You dream of wolves, of water turning black, of walking alone through empty fields with no sun in the sky. You hear voices, but not clearly. Some call your name. Some just mutter or chant or cry softly. Your family thinks you might be dying. They don't say it out loud, but you can see it in their movements. They speak more softly. They kneel beside your bed instead of sitting. They make the sign of the cross more often. They bring more treatments. A paste made from crushed barley and sheep's milk is smeared across your chest, then scraped off the next morning and buried under a tree. You're given wine mixed with mint, then later wine mixed with vinegar. Someone suggests rabbit fat. Another says the urine of a young boy. They try both. The wise woman brings something new. A charm written in wax and pressed between two wafers of bread. You're meant to wear it over your heart, but the string breaks. They replace it with a strip of cloth from your wife's apron. A tooth begins to ache, throbbing, sharp, deep in your jaw. The barber is called again. This time he brings his pliers. No herbs, no sleep, no question. He braces your head against the wall. He pulls, once, twice. On the third try, The tooth comes free. You do not remember screaming. But afterward, your throat is hoarse and your jaws bleeding. The blood is a good sign, he says. Better out than in. Your wife burns rosemary in a pan of embers. The smoke curls through the room. She waves it over your chest, then under the bed, then through the window. To let the illness escape, someone places a silver coin in your hand. To give to Saint Apollonia. For the pain. Your mother-in-law offers a poultice made from crushed snails and honey. It is spread across your neck and tied in place with a strip of linen. You sleep, you sweat. You whisper things you don't remember. At one point you open your eyes and see the priest standing over you again. He has come for last rites. You're not sure if this is a dream. He speaks gently and the others step back. He offers the sacrament. He anoints your forehead. He says words that flow like a stream in spring. You cannot speak, but you nod. And then, for some reason, you do not die. The next day you wake up before the sun, your throat still hurts, your limbs still ache. But the fog in your head is lighter. The pressure in your chest is dull, not sharp. The world no longer spins when you sit upright. Your wife notices the difference first. She doesn't smile, not yet. But she squeezes your hand, she tells the others. The wise woman returns that afternoon. She nods solemnly. The illness is broken, she says. The devil has passed. They thank her with a sack of flour and 3 fresh eggs. She leaves quietly. The barber does not return, neither does the priest. For days you recover slowly, eating small bites of bread, drinking boiled water with herbs, listening to the fire crackle and the soft footsteps of children. Your chest still rattles, but it's no longer frightening, just a reminder of how close you came and how little anyone could do. Because here in your world, medicine is not a science, it is not a system, it is a slow, muddled ritual, a mix of old beliefs, seasonal plants, lucky guesses, and the stubbornness of the human body. And if you survive, it is not because of the treatment, it is in spite of it. It starts far away. At first, it's just a whisper, a word passed from traveller to merchant, from sailor to port guard, from letter to ear. Something is happening in the east. The story changes with every telling. A sickness, a curse, a punishment, a wind that kills, a poison in the rivers, an army of rats. No one knows for sure, and in truth no one wants to believe it. Because how could something like this be real? But then the ships begin to arrive. In 1347, 12 galleys dock at the Sicilian port of Messina. They come from the Black Sea, from the city of Caffa. Their sails are torn, their crews are thin, and most of the men on board are already dead. The few who remain are pale, trembling, feverish, their bodies covered in strange black swellings, hard lumps beneath the skin, the size of apples. Their skin is blotched, their breath shallow. They're too weak to walk, too far gone to speak. The authorities order them to leave, to go back out to sea. But it's too late, because the sickness is not just in their bodies, it's in the cargo, the rats, the fleas, the holds of grain and cloth, quietly carrying death. Within days it begins to spread. Messina, then Palermo, then Genoa, then Venice. The ports try to close, walls are built, gates are barred, but it does no good. The plague moves faster than fear. By spring it reaches France, then Spain, Germany, England. It moves with the merchants, the priests, the refugees, the soldiers. Everywhere it touches, it follows the same path. First the fever, then the aches, then the swellings, under the arms, at the groin, behind the neck. The body becomes blackened, the breath grows shallow, and in 2 or 3 days, death comes, sometimes sooner. Whole families die in a week, villages lose half their people, towns begin to empty, and the dead lie where they fall. At first, people try to understand, to name it, to contain it. They pray, they chant, they light incense, they beat drums, they ring bells, but nothing stops it. Physicians wear masks shaped like birds, filled with herbs and flowers. They poke at their patients from a distance. They burn sulphur. They cut veins. They consult the stars. But nothing works. In Avignon, the Pope sits between two great fires. He believes the heat will protect him. He survives. Many do not. In Paris, university scholars write a treatise. They blame the movement of Saturn and Jupiter. They say the air is poisoned, that a great corruption has descended from the heavens. They might as well be reading tea leaves. In London, bodies pile in churchyards. In Florence, art stops. In the countryside, fields go unploughed. Oxen wander without masters. And still, it spreads. The people who can flee do. They ride into the hills. They hide in estates. They wall themselves in. But the sickness finds them too. Some respond with violence. They blame outsiders, strangers, Jews, lepers, witches. Pogroms follow, burnings, exile, revenge, as if hatred could cure a fever. Others turn to faith. Flagellants walk barefoot from town to town, beating their own backs, crying out for mercy. They say the plague is a punishment, that it must be paid for in blood. And everywhere, silence grows. Streets go quiet, work stops, children vanish, the bells toll more often, and the people stop asking why, because it no longer matters, only who is next. In some towns, 1 in every 3 is gone. In others, 1 in every 2. Across Europe, millions vanish, not in war, not in rebellion, but in fever, in sweat, in stillness. The Black Death has arrived, and nothing will ever be the same. There are no maps to chart its path, only rumours, whispers in markets, footprints that fade into nothing, and empty chairs where people used to sit. You begin to hear about it weeks before it reaches your village. At first it's just a story, a distant city, a family that never woke up, a merchant caravan that turned back without explanation. The elders shake their heads. They've seen fevers before, and pox and famine. It's nothing new, they say, just more of the same. The world always finds ways to thin itself. But then the messengers stop coming, and the roads go quiet, and one day the baker's wife begins to cough. She was fine yesterday. Tired, maybe. But this is something else. By nightfall she cannot stand. By morning she cannot breathe. You visit the house. It smells of sweat and rosewater and something deeper, like meat left too long in the sun. She's burning with fever, muttering nonsense, scratching at her neck. There's a lump there, hard, black, the size of a walnut. You've never seen anything like it. The priest visits. He sprinkles holy water and recites a prayer. He leaves quickly. That night the village bell rings once, then again, then a third time. The next day 2 more are sick. The healer comes with dried herbs. Lavender, rosemary, thistle. She burns them in a small bowl. The smoke rises, filling the room, but it does not help. They die anyway. The children go quiet. No one plays near the well. People begin to walk with scarves tied over their mouths. Doors are shut faster. No one shakes hands. When someone dies, they're buried fast. No wake, no feast, just a prayer and a hole in the ground. In some towns the bodies are stacked in wagons. The bell tolls all day. Gravediggers wear waxed cloth over their faces. Some walk with long sticks, turning bodies from a distance. There aren't enough priests to keep up. Some refuse to enter the homes. Others fall sick themselves. Churches begin to empty. Not from disbelief, but from death. And when the plague moves on, it leaves nothing behind. No one rebuilds the houses. No one tends the fields. The grass grows long, the roads crack, and the names of the dead are spoken once, then never again. In the cities, things fall apart faster. Florence, Paris, London. The streets fill with bodies. Doctors write in frantic Latin, describing symptoms they don't understand. They say it's in the air, in the blood, in the stars. They close the bathhouses, they close the inns, they close the markets. And still the people die, faster than anyone thought possible. Some lock their doors and wait, others drink or dance or pray louder. There are stories of villages where everyone is gone, where carts sit mid-path, where the soup is still in the pot, untouched, where dogs and pigs now live in the houses of men. Children are left orphaned. Then the children die too. Whole generations vanish, not over centuries, but in weeks, and the world does not stop. The sun still rises, the birds still sing, the trees still bloom in spring. But the people are fewer, and their voices are quieter, and the fear does not go away. The Black Death did not just kill, it unstitched the seams of the known world. It took what was certain, family, work, prayer, ritual, and replaced it with silence. No war, no fire, just a quiet undoing of breath and memory. And by the time it passed, nothing was the same. The plague had no cure. But that didn't stop people from trying. Because when everything around you is dying, you do something, anything, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it's just to feel like you still have a little control. It begins with smoke. Everywhere you go, there is smoke in the air. People burn bundles of herbs, lavender, sage, rosemary, rue, in marketplaces, on street corners, in homes with their shutters closed. The air is thick with the scent of desperate protection. They say it cleans the miasma, the poisoned air, that invisible corruption that floats in from the east, that seeps into your lungs, that hides in corners. In some places, fires are lit in the middle of the street, great piles of pine, cedar and resin. The sick are told to sit by them, sometimes the healthy too. When the wind shifts, people panic. They believe the breeze carries death. They walk with scarves tied over their mouths. They stuff their nostrils with dried petals or vinegar-soaked cloth. Some wear masks, not like the ones we know today, but long, bird-like beaks, filled with sweet-smelling herbs and powders. The beak is meant to trap the bad air, to keep it away from the lungs. It doesn't work, but it looks impressive, and sometimes that's enough. In cities, walls go up. Whole districts are sealed off. Quarantine orders are issued. 40 days of isolation. The word quarantine comes from the Italian 40 giorni. 40 days. Ships arriving in Venice must wait at sea. Goods are left outside the city gates for days. Letters are baked. Coins are boiled. Priests walk the streets chanting blessings. They carry holy relics, crosses, bones of saints. They tell people to confess, because the plague might be punishment for greed, for lust, for pride, for all the sins the world carries silently beneath its skin. People begin to fast, to give up meat, to sleep on hard stone floors, to whip themselves. The flagellants travel in long lines, shirtless, chanting. They beat their backs with iron-tipped cords until the blood runs. In some towns, people join them. In others, they're turned away. The church itself is divided. Some bishops approve, others ban them, because even the church is afraid. There are those who look for signs in the sky, comets, eclipses, unusual alignments of planets. In Paris, scholars write that Jupiter and Saturn came too close in 1345, that their conjunction created a corruption of the air. That, they say, is what opened the gate to death. Others blame the water. They close wells, drain ponds, blame the fish. Still others blame people. Strangers, foreigners, Jews. Accusations rise with the death toll. Whole communities are burned, drowned, expelled, not because they caused the plague, but because people need something to strike. It is easier to burn a neighbour than to bury a child. And through it all, the healers keep working. They offer mixtures of crushed emerald and rosewater, syrups made from violets and honey, compresses of clay and vinegar, sometimes powdered toad, sometimes ground beetles, sometimes gold leaf dissolved in wine. The wealthy can afford more herbs, more servants to fetch clean water, more distance from the crowded streets. But no one is safe. Kings die, bishops die, doctors die. Everyone tries something different, and nothing works. So people begin to live differently. Meals are smaller, weddings are faster, burials are simpler. Some abandon their homes, others refuse to leave their sick. There are stories of people locking themselves away with loved ones, all dying together, quietly, and stories of towns that close their gates, post guards, and turn away even children. In one village, everyone survives. In the next, no one does. And no one knows why. But still, the people try. Because trying is what's left when medicine has failed, when prayer has faded, when even grief feels heavy with repetition. You light another candle, hang a sprig of herbs on your door, boil your clothes, sweep your floor, and whisper a prayer, not of healing, but of passing by. Not today, not this house, not this time. You sleep with one eye open, you eat a little less, you walk a little farther from your neighbours, and you hope that something, anything, will be enough. What does survival mean when no one understands the danger, when the enemy is not a soldier, not a king, not a thief in the night, but breath, and skin, and time? People become cautious, then strange. You start to see things you don't recognise. Doors painted with ash, crows nailed to gates, candles burning at midday, people burying their shoes in the garden to confuse the sickness. There's no pattern, no consistency. But every village has its own ritual. Passed down, made up, half remembered. The idea is to act, to do something, to change the ending before it arrives. Some sleep beside fire pits, others refuse to sleep at all. They walk the streets, eyes wide, muttering prayers under their breath. A few disappear into the woods, building huts far from the roads, living on boiled roots and mushrooms, refusing to speak to anyone. In the cities, things grow desperate. The rich retreat to country estates. They take servants, food, clean linens. They pretend the world has paused, not ended. Some survive, others bring the plague with them. In the poorest quarters, people die in clusters. Houses are boarded up. Bodies are removed at night. Dogs and cats are killed, because someone said they carry the plague in their eyes. Panic doesn't look like screaming, it looks like silence, like eyes that don't blink, like neighbours who stop knocking on each other's doors. And still, life continues. Midwives deliver babies, bread is still baked, the bells still ring. But the city has a different rhythm now, fewer voices, shorter sermons, no laughter in the streets. People carry garlic around their necks, small wax tablets inscribed with charms, tiny pouches sewn into clothing filled with ash or crushed sapphire. You hear of strange treatments from distant lands. In Egypt, they burn old books and grind them into powder to drink. In Spain, they rub olive oil mixed with pigeon droppings on the chest. In Hungary, they sleep under tombstones to trick the plague into passing over. In the Alps, someone invents a silver whistle they claim repels death. In England, a nobleman commissions a full suit of leather, hooded, gloved, sealed, which he wears each day while walking his estate. He still dies. Doctors argue. Some say it's the heart, others say it's the stomach, a few say it comes from sadness. But those who lose hope die faster. No one can prove anything, so the prescriptions continue. Boiled eggs mixed with ash, bread soaked in blood, a goose feather waved over the head, the sound of a lute played at the foot of the bed. It is not medicine. It is ritual. It is faith. It is human. Some people survive, and that's the strangest part. A few recover, slowly. They cough for days, sleep endlessly, then wake up. Different. Weaker, but alive. No one knows why. No one trusts it. Survivors are shunned. Some believe they carry traces of death, that their breath is cursed. One woman is said to have survived by eating only turnips, another by bathing in cold river water. A boy claims he was cured when a dog licked his wounds. Each story becomes legend, passed from town to town, repeated, changed, believed, because people need something to believe. They need to feel that survival is possible, that it's not just random, that the world still has meaning beneath the rot. The plague never truly ends. It recedes, like a tide, like a shadow that moves on when the sun changes. No one knows why, but it leaves scars, empty homes, abandoned farms, churches with cracked bells, graveyards that stretch to the horizon, and in the silence that follows, the survivors begin to write it all down, to paint it, to pray about it, to try and remember what it felt like, to do everything right, and still almost die. Because in the end, that's what survival was during the plague. Not science, not knowledge, not certainty, or just movement, just habit, just trying. One strange day at a time. You're feeling unwell, your head aches, your stomach is tight, you haven't slept. And so, as expected, someone tells you your humours are out of balance. Not your mood, not your emotions, but your body. Because in the medieval world, the body is governed by fluids. 4 of them: blood, phlegm, yellow bile and black bile. Each tied not just to health, but to who you are. You're born with a blend, and that blend determines everything. Your health, your behaviour, your personality. It begins in ancient Greece, with Hippocrates. Then Galen, the Roman physician, adds structure. By the Middle Ages, this theory is canon, taught in universities, copied in manuscripts, recited by physicians in velvet robes and monastery halls. Your body, they say, is a kind of alchemical vessel, a delicate mixture of wet and dry, hot and cold. Too much heat, you're feverish, aggressive. Too much cold, you're slow, melancholic. Your humours are like weather inside your body. And medicine is meant to change the forecast. A choleric person has too much yellow bile. They are quick to anger, red-faced, restless. A sanguine person has a dominance of blood. They are joyful, impulsive, energetic, phlegmatic, calm, slow, pale, melancholic, thoughtful, sad, prone to madness. You're not just treated based on your symptoms. You're treated based on who your fluids say you are. The physician asks questions: how often you sleep, what you crave, what colour your urine is. They examine your skin, your eyes, your voice. They compare your symptoms to the seasons. Autumn is dry and cold, spring is wet and warm. If your condition doesn't match the season, it's a clue. You are diagnosed not just by what's happening, but by what should be happening, according to a theory drawn from scrolls 1,000 years old. And so, the treatments begin. A fever? That's too much heat and moisture. You need to be cooled and dried. You're told to eat barley, drink sour wine, avoid sleep. If your skin is pale and your thoughts are slow, you have too much phlegm. You need pepper, garlic, movement, sweat. Melancholy? A cold dryness of the spirit. You'll need baths, and music, and perhaps a purge. The goal is not to attack the illness, it is to restore the balance, a return to harmony, a tuning of the strings. This is not superstition, not to them. This is medicine as art, as philosophy, as reflection. Physicians keep charts. They draw diagrams of bodies, each labelled with humours, organs and planetary symbols. The liver governs blood, the brain, phlegm, the gallbladder, yellow bile, the spleen, black bile, the heart, caught in the centre of it all, inflamed, burdened, yearning to find equilibrium. There are no microscopes, no bacteria, no anatomy labs, only theory, and the idea that the body is a little universe, with its own tides and weather. When you're sick, you're told your balance has been lost, and that restoring it will take time and sacrifice. Bloodletting is common, to drain excess, to release heat, to bring calm. Vomiting may be induced, so may sweating, or fasting, or purging through enemas of warm wine and herbs. This is the world of medicine you're born into. A world where bleeding is a blessing, where phlegm has meaning, where yellow bile is blamed for your temper. It's not that people were foolish, it's that they had to make meaning with the tools they had. And what they had was ink, and scrolls, and long, careful observation of what worked, even when they didn't know why. Some of it helped, some of it didn't. Most of it just bought time. But in that time, you might recover. And if you did, it meant the balance had returned. And so, the theory lived on, for centuries, because it gave illness a shape, a logic, a rhythm, even when the truth was far more invisible. The physician sits beside you silent. He's older than you expected, or maybe just tired. His robes are clean but worn thin at the sleeves. He smells of cloves and parchment. He carries no medicine chest, only a pouch of tools, a chart of planetary hours, and a small leather-bound book, its corners darkened by use. He places a bowl beside your bed and asks you to urinate. You do, slowly, quietly. He studies the colour in the light of the window. Then he holds a long spoon over it, watching how it clings to the metal. He murmurs something about heat and dryness and wind. You don't ask what that means. He seems to know. Then he asks what you've eaten. You mention bread, goat's milk, a little onion, and 3 days ago some salted fish. He nods. Salted fish, he says, is cooling, but also drying. Onion is hot and moist. Goat's milk is cold and wet. The combination, he says, could explain the blockage in your bile. You blink. You thought you were just tired. He pulls out a chart and begins to sketch something. Your body, he explains, is like a garden. If the soil is too dry, it must be watered. If it is too cold, it must be warmed. If it grows too wild, it must be trimmed. If it is overgrown with weeds, it must be cleared. He believes you're too moist and too warm. He prescribes a purge. Tomorrow you will eat only boiled lentils. You will not drink wine. You will not sleep in the afternoon. You must avoid red meat, loud conversation, and sad music. Instead, you should walk in the early morning. Listen to bird song, smell dried mint. Read aloud but softly. He is not unkind. He speaks gently. He believes what he says, and so do you. Because there's comfort in rules, in rituals, in the belief that the body has a grammar if only you can learn to read it. He gives you a small cloth packet. Inside, powdered ginger, dried rose petals, and a pinch of something bitter. He tells you to mix it with warm water and drink it slowly while facing east. This, he says, will bring your bile back into balance. It will open your spleen. It will cool your temper. You follow the instructions exactly. Because if you are sick because of imbalance, then healing must be a return to symmetry. Your meals become structured, your movements timed. You avoid cold baths and hot fires. You sleep with your feet slightly raised. You carry a sprig of sage in your sleeve to temper the influence of damp air. The physician visits again. He reads your pulse, counts your breaths, listens to your dreams. Dreams, he says, are messages from the humours. A red sky in a dream means heat. Falling means dryness. A dream of water, perhaps an excess of phlegm. He tells you of other cases. A man whose laughter was caused by too much blood. A woman whose sadness came from black bile. A boy who fainted every time he heard bells, cured with crushed coriander and a change in diet. It all fits in a way. Or rather, it sounds like it fits. And in a world without microscopes or blood tests or vaccines, a system is better than chaos. You come to know your humours like parts of a household. The blood that warms, the phlegm that slows, the bile that burns, the melancholy that cools. You begin to believe that every part of you wants to be in agreement. But sometimes they argue. A meal too rich, a mood too dark, a season too damp. Each of them pulls your body in a different direction, and so you learn to listen, not for symptoms, but for shifts. A headache is not an accident. It is a protest. A fever is not a threat. It is a fire meant to dry out imbalance. A shiver is not just cold. It is the body's reminder that something within is leaning too far from centre. Medicine is not war. It is music, a tuning, a long negotiation between the four parts of yourself. You may never be cured, but you may return to balance, and that to a medieval mind is healing. Let's step inside the apothecary's shop. It's a small space, dim, close, quiet. The shelves are crowded with jars, some made of glass, others clay, others carved from wood or bone. Each is labelled in curling Latin script, some faded, some scratched out and written over. The air smells thick, not of illness, but of ingredients: crushed bark, wine vinegar, dried sage, bruised mint, old honey, a hint of sulphur, something floral, something rotten, a smell that clings to the folds of cloth and the cracks in stone. The apothecary himself wears a stained robe. His fingers are stained as well, brown at the tips, yellowed nails, soft from handling oils and powders. He greets you softly, not because he is kind, though he might be, but because everything here is done in murmurs. He asks for your symptoms. You describe your aches, your cold hands, your anxious dreams. He listens, then turns to the shelf. He selects a jar of dried chamomile, another filled with ground motherwort. He adds 2 curls of orange peel and a pinch of powder from a dark blue bottle with no label. You do not ask what it is. He grinds the mixture in a mortar slowly. He pours warm water over it, stirs with a stick of hazelwood, and strains it through linen. You drink it. It tastes like earth and ash and flowers left too long in the sun. This is medicine, but not just plants. He shows you a box of prepared toad, a flattened amphibian, sun-dried, powdered, and sealed in wax. Useful for skin complaints. He has jars of ground pearls intended to ease melancholy, goat's blood, bear fat, antler shavings, moss from a gravestone, only collected on a Tuesday and only from the north side. He shows you vials of mercury. Used carefully, he says, it draws out bad spirits. And then, the most precious jar, a piece of unicorn horn. Long, spiraled, pale ivory. It's not a unicorn, of course. It's a narwhal tusk brought by traders from the north. But the name matters more than the truth. Ground unicorn horn is said to detect poison, to purify blood, to ward off plague. It sells for more than gold. Next to it sits a jar labelled mummy powder, dust ground from preserved flesh, imported from distant lands. It's said to strengthen the heart and protect against sudden death. You see candles made of beeswax blackened with ashes from burned St. relics. You see pressed herbs bound in twine, ready to be worn around the neck. You see a dried bat nailed to a board meant to ward off nighttime fevers. It's not just medicine, it's belief, bound in jars and folded in paper. And it doesn't stop with plants and powders, because medicine is written in the stars. Before your remedy is prepared, the apothecary, or sometimes the physician, consults the sky. What is the moon's phase? Where is Mars? What house is Saturn in? Certain procedures are forbidden when certain stars are rising. Cures must be timed carefully. If you are born under a water sign, you must avoid wet herbs during a full moon. A chart is drawn. The heavens are examined. Some healers carry small brass astrolabes, etched with constellations. Others carry painted wheels that spin to show the most favourable hour for bloodletting. Medicine is a collaboration between earth and sky. You're told not to harvest yarrow unless Venus is visible. You must burn sage while facing east. If you take valerian root, do not eat bread before sunset. If your illness began in a storm, wear linen soaked in rainwater gathered on St. Agnes's Day. It sounds strange, but it gives structure to suffering. It gives rhythm to healing. It makes pain part of a system, not a punishment, but a puzzle. And sometimes the people get better. No one knows why. But when they do, the remedy becomes sacred. And so it is copied, preserved, passed down. Until one day, you're given a powder made from eggshells and crushed emerald. Not because anyone understands how it works, but because someone, once, survived. And in a world where illness is a shadow that moves without shape, a single survivor is enough to write a recipe. So you take the powder, you wear the charm, you carry the herb bundle, you avoid the unlucky hour, and when you heal, you swear by it. Because medicine is not always a cure. Sometimes it's just something to hold in your hand while you wait for the sickness to pass. Far from the villages, far from the thatched roofs and muddy streets, far from the straw mattresses and herbal poultices. Medicine looks different. Not better, just different. You're now in a great stone hall. The floors are swept, the windows are tall, and the sick bed has clean linen. You are in the presence of a royal physician. He does not kneel beside your pallet. He does not grind herbs in a wooden bowl. He does not chant over smoke. He walks with confidence. He wears robes of dark velvet lined with fur. His beard is trimmed. His belt carries a book, a quill, a silver spoon. He speaks in Latin. He quotes Galen. He does not guess. He interprets. His patient is not a peasant, not a baker, not a shepherd or a village girl. His patient is a nobleman, or a queen, or a favoured cousin of a duke, someone important, someone worth saving, and so the room is quiet. A servant brings warm water in a copper basin. Another brings rose-scented cloth. The physician takes his time. He does not check the pulse with fingers. He watches the breath. He reads the tongue. He consults a chart of humours, and, most importantly, he examines the urine. It is poured into a clear glass vial and held to the light. He notes its colour, its clarity, its thickness. He swirls it gently, watching for residue. He then references a small manuscript, pages copied by hand, imported from Salerno, perhaps even translated from Arabic. He makes no sudden movements, no dramatic pronouncements, only calm, confident notes. The blood is warm and dry, the bile is sluggish, the phlegm is obstructed. The noble patient waits, wrapped in linen, fanned gently, perfumed against the stench of illness. A diagnosis is offered, not a name. Medieval medicine rarely had names, but a condition of the body's balance. It is not the flu. It is an overheating of the blood. It is a thickening of the humours in the belly. It is a melancholy rooted in the liver. And so the treatment begins, not from desperation, but from ceremony. A poultice is prepared, not with dung or ash, but with finely ground pearl and saffron, and wine reduced over hours. It is warmed over steam and laid gently over the chest. A syrup is mixed, infused with cinnamon, anise, clove. It is poured into a goblet of blown glass and sipped in silence. If bloodletting is required, it is done with silver instruments. The bowl is held by a page in uniform. A cloth of silk is placed under the arm to catch stray drops. The physician watches the stars. He does not prescribe during unfavourable conjunctions. He will return in the morning, when Mars has moved. The patient is not disturbed in the night. A candle is left burning. A prayer is whispered, not out of fear, but formality. If the condition worsens, the physician will write to his colleagues. He will reference Avicenna. He will quote Aristotle. He will request special ingredients, ambergris, rhubarb root, bezoar stones. If need be, he will summon another physician, perhaps from the university. Together they will examine the stools, debate the temperament, redraw the humoral chart. No shouting, no panic, only knowledge, or something like it. Because here, in these stone chambers, illness is not chaos. It is a challenge, a puzzle, and above all, an opportunity. Because if the patient survives, the physician is praised, rewarded, given a new tunic, a silver ring, or a letter of honour, and if the patient dies, well, even the stars cannot be defied. He will write it down. Death by imbalance of the spirits, and the court will nod, and life will go on. Because here, medicine is not about certainty, it is about status, access, presentation. The poor have hope, the rich have structure, and both, in the end, have the same outcome. But the difference lies in the waiting, in the warmth of the sheets, in the cost of the cup, and in the confidence of the man at the bedside who speaks in Latin and carries a book no one else can read. In the world of the noble sick, nothing happens quickly. Time stretches in these halls. The candles are long, the voices are low, and every decision passes through layers of cloth, hierarchy, and hesitation. The royal physician does not work alone. There is the apothecary, skilled, quiet, rarely seen. He grinds, mixes, labels, and occasionally cautions. He provides powders of amber, opium, rosehip, and dried coral. And if something stronger is needed, he sends a courier by horse to the university. There is also the astrologer. Yes, still. He is consulted before any procedure more serious than a tonic. If Venus is in the wrong house, the lancet stays sheathed. If Mercury is rising, the air may not be safe for breathing. Even bleeding must be timed with the stars. The physician receives regular updates. The patient's condition, temperature, mood, bowel movements. Sometimes poetry is read aloud to lift the spirits. Music is played near the sick bed. Incense is burned to purify the room. Myrrh, frankincense, or sweet marjoram. The windows are opened for fresh air, then closed again to guard against the chill. Blankets are warmed by the fire. Servants walk barefoot to keep the chamber quiet. If you were to observe from a distance, you might think this was a kind of magic, not because it involves charms or spells, but because it resembles a ritual, a courtly, slow, methodical act of containment, of preserving the illusion of control. Every detail is considered. The food served to the patient is simple, symbolic. Clear broths, soft breads, herbal teas in fine ceramic cups. Each spoonful is weighed, measured, and watched. If the patient winces, the physician nods thoughtfully, then writes in his journal. The writing is elegant. The letters curved, narrow, and precise. Written in Latin, of course. Not because it must be, but because it should be. Because Latin means learned. Latin means distance. Latin means the sickness is not yours. The physician often speaks more to the steward than to the patient. He outlines the regimen. He lists the restrictions. He speaks of humours, celestial forces, and temperament. The patient, weak, sweating, weary, only nods. And when the bleeding is done, when the leeches are returned to their jar, when the latest tonic has been swallowed, the physician rises. He bows, but only slightly. He leaves the chamber slowly, robe trailing behind, passing guards, servants, scribes. His next stop is often not another patient, but the court, where he answers questions from nobles, where he debates with scholars, where he is praised quietly for his restraint. Sometimes he attends councils, sits beside bishops, ambassadors, and men of coin. He is more than a healer, he is a symbol. His presence says, "We understand." Even when they don't. His tools are elegant, his books are imported, his fees are considerable, but what he sells, what he truly offers, is reassurance. That sickness can be managed, that death is negotiable, that knowledge, properly spoken and beautifully dressed, can hold off the dark. And when it doesn't, when the patient declines and the priest is called, the physician steps back with dignity. He does not flinch. He does not apologize. He simply records the moment, draws the final line in his journal, and begins again. Because in the world of the elite, medicine is not about curing. It's about maintaining the order of things, the silence, the decorum, the distance between the dying body and the ones who watch it fade. If you weren't a noble, if you couldn't afford velvet doctors or powdered pearls, if you were poor, wandering, orphaned, broken, you might still find a kind of care. Not in clinics, not in surgery halls, but in stone buildings tucked beside churches, behind wooden gates, under watchful bell towers. You would find it in the monastery. Not all monasteries offered healing. Not all monks were doctors, but many grew herbs, copied medical texts, tended to the sick as part of their spiritual duty. They did not always know what they were doing, but they knew it mattered to try. These places were quiet, stone floors, narrow beds, a smell of candle wax and thyme. The hospital, if it was called that, was often just a large room, dozens of straw mattresses laid side by side, a simple wooden cross above the door, small windows too high to look through, letting in filtered light. There were no wards, no charts, just names spoken quietly and wounds revealed without embarrassment. A monk would come at regular hours carrying a bowl of warm broth or a cup of bitter tea. He might sing a hymn while washing your feet, or read aloud from scripture while applying a poultice. In the corners, beeswax candles burned day and night. Sometimes herbs were hung from the beams, rosemary, hyssop, valerian. Not to cure, just to make the air easier to breathe. You were not treated as a puzzle or a client, but as a soul. You were reminded to confess, to prepare, to rest. And if you died, your name was written down, your body washed, your death witnessed in silence. There was no bill, no consultation fee, only a quiet sense that caring for the body was one way of caring for the spirit. And elsewhere, beyond the cloisters and courtyards, another kind of healing began to take root. In Salerno, in Bologna, in Paris, medical schools, built from manuscripts, Arabic translations, Greek commentaries, long discussions held in vaulted lecture halls. Here medicine became theory, observation, repetition. Students studied the writings of Galen, Hippocrates, Avicenna. They learned how to classify fevers, how to map the pulse, how to write neat Latin reports of what they had seen. But they did not cut open bodies. Dissection was rare, often forbidden. So they drew diagrams of imagined organs, of humours in balance, of veins that followed the logic of stars, not biology. And yet, slowly, quietly, some of it helped. They learned how to treat wounds with vinegar, how to use willow bark to ease pain, how to cool a fever with shade and water, not fire. They learned to be cautious, to study, and in time they wrote their own books, added footnotes, passed their knowledge to the next generation. Still bound in theory, still layered in superstition, but inching forward. A student might take what he learned in Paris and bring it to a small village in France. He might know nothing of bacteria, but he would wash his hands. He would recommend rest. He would bleed less often. He would ask more questions. And that was something. Because for most of the world, sickness still meant silence, but in these halls, on worn parchment, lit by candlelight, someone was writing it down. And someday someone else might read it, and wonder what else was missing. So now, we've seen it all. The cramped cottage where a fever burns in the dark, the barber-surgeon's trembling hands, the herbalist's kitchen full of smoke and ash, the university lecture where anatomy is a matter of memory and guesswork, the quiet monastery where care is offered with gentleness if not knowledge, the noble bedchamber where sickness is dressed in silk and Latin. You've been bled, purged, wrapped in poultices, handed powders made from rose petals, crushed beetles and bits of bone. You've fasted, you've prayed, you've whispered to the stars and listened to someone tell you, with perfect confidence, that your spleen is full of wind. And maybe they believed it. Maybe you did too. Because before medicine was science, it was story. It was metaphor. It was a ritual we performed so we wouldn't feel alone in the dark. To say, I see you're in pain. To say, this has a name. To say, we don't know what's happening, but here, hold this herb, wear this charm, drink this tea, and maybe, just maybe, it will pass. And sometimes it did. Not because of the leech, not because of the chart, but because the body heals when it can, and because hope, even in its strangest form, can carry a person just far enough. So now, in your soft bed, in a time with antiseptic and anaesthesia, with vaccines and microscopes and pills that work, you can rest easy. Not because they got it right, but because they tried. And because every whisper, every scribbled chart, every dried toad nailed to a doorframe, led, eventually, to something better. Medicine isn't magic, but once, it had to be. And maybe that's worth remembering as you fall asleep tonight. That your ancestors lit candles and crushed herbs, recited prayers and watched the sky, and through all of it, they endured. So now, let your breath slow. There's no fever tonight. No chart to read, no incense burning by your bed, only quiet, only warmth, only sleep.